Welcome to the Nuff Said podcast. This is talking about Season 2, Episode 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Face My Enemy.
Wow.
I have to say it very menacing like that. I am one of your hosts. I am rejuvenated Rob Southgate. With me is...
Jazzman Jacqueline Grosky.
And, a lot of dead air. Noah Lill this week. Somebody doesn't know how to work Skype.
Bummer. I could barely work Skype today. This show is probably going to wind up just you.
That could happen. You know what? It's going to sound... I'm going to throw up a warning flag right now so that people understand. Your sound is funky today, and it's because you're traveling, and Skype is acting weird. So
yeah, that's true. And this is an older pair of headphones, so you'll just have to bear with us today, and then maybe in the after edit you can add some interest and quality and intelligence to my voice.
You know what? We've tried that for over a year now, and it hasn't worked on either one of us. So,
I don't think there's a program strong enough for that.
Okay, Jack. So let's get into this. Face My Enemy. I thought this was okay. When we watched the preview last week, I think I may have said this on the show. I was a little nervous that this was going to turn into the A-Team or one of those, like 80s shows. It just had that feel to me when I watched them dancing, and I was like, I was a little nervous. It was going to be my least favorite. Quite the opposite. I loved this. What did you think?
Well, it had all the great elements of what S.H.I.E.L.D. should be. It had the tech. It had, like spies. It had May on May.
We're going to talk about that. That was awesome. That was just the best.
I've always talked about how May has attacked and shot everybody else on the team.
Now she's attacked herself.
I know. It was the ultimate May attack.
So here's my first initial thought before we get into the episode. My initial feeling after the episode. I kept thinking it during it, and afterwards I'm like, what would be the first thing I would say about this? This one, and even though I don't think Joss Whedon wrote this episode, this was a Joss Whedon episode. This was like watching Firefly. That was the feeling I got. It had a lot of Firefly references. Did you catch when Skye was riding her scooter and then she went up into the back of the bus? That was so the back of the Firefly.
Right, yeah.
And just the way they when they were talking about Fitz with the bonding and all that, the way they were talking to each other, the dialogue, I was like, my God, this is absolutely like Firefly. I've been watching Buffy. It has that kind of Joss Whedon-ness to it.
Well, and on the
did I just coin a new phrase, Joss Whedon-ness?
Joss Whedon. I think that's a breakfast cereal.
It does help you go, so to speak.
But what I was going to say was Firefly all took place so much. I would say 90% of it was on the ship,
right?
And so much of this was on the bus, and I can see that parallel between the two.
Well, it just looked like the Firefly to me. Even the way they the cargo thing with the tarp, with that yellow tarp thing over it. I was like, God, it looks like the Firefly.
Yeah, it had that whole vibe where they're all hanging out, which was very reminiscent of Firefly. That was much more of a team that we've seen yet in Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. However, this time it was very Joss Whedon-ish. Did you like that?
I did, because his name is Joss, not Josh, and
I do that every time. It's Joss. Who the heck names their kid Joss?
Apparently, Mr. and Mrs. Whedon did.
I know. We need to have a talk.
Yeah.
So anyway, was the guy that was it All in the Family? He just kept mispronouncing names, but you figure he could. He just kept doing it anyway.
Hey, you know what? I have no idea, but okay.
So none of our listeners do, because it's way too old. So anyway, I digress. That scene where they're all hanging out and bonding is very much more reminiscent of Firefly. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. Well, and even I was nervous about this dance number. I was like, that's where I felt like it was going to break the show. So I was nervous going into this week. Oh no, the dance number was a moment. They played it up like this was going to be a big scene. It was a moment, and I loved that whole thing. And I loved the best thing. Well, May was the best thing of the whole episode, the whole time. But when she was laughing, and Skye goes, "What is that?" He's like, Agent May is laughing. The worst of it's almost over. That was fantastic. And once again, that was very Joss Whedon-esque.
We're just gonna have fun with that this whole episode.
Oh, yes, we will.
Making nouns out of Whedon.
It very much was. Even though like a lot of writers do that, and I'm not saying I really don't believe he wrote this episode, but whoever wrote it absolutely took that idea of how his shows work best and really did a great job. Because I'm telling you, it just reminded me with the fact that I'm watching Buffy. Now I'm watching Buffy. I'm in season 2. Have you ever watched Buffy?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, but yeah, I've seen a few episodes.
I had never watched it. I started watching it because of our podcast network, and I watched the first season, and I really enjoyed it. Started the second season. Oh man, second season is where it's at. I mean, it's really great, but it has this element to it. It's what worked in Avengers too, where it's like it's funny, but it's not a comedy. It's witty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it had that. It had those elements that a lot of his earlier work had, and
yeah, it
I
really
didn't see it prior to this point as much. I think it was really much more noticeable. They've tried it before, but this is the first time it works. And you know why I think it is?
Why?
The addition of Mac has really pulled Triplet into the team. It makes the kind of the unstable mercenary character kind of work because they kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever this weird thing they got going with Fitz's cerebral cortex, it actually makes even that work. So I think Mac is like the peanut butter and chocolate. He's like the Reese's peanut butter cup where he's making everything work.
The Reese's peanut butter cup. You know what? As much as it sounds weird, I'm going with you on this. It's funny because Mac wasn't there last season. We never met this guy until this season. And all of a sudden he's there and he's buddying up to Fitz. And we're like, okay, I like this character. Who is he? I tell you what, I don't care who he is. You know what? I don't need the origin story of Mac. I don't need any more details. He's part of the team. Triplet, I'm so happy he's part of the team. I like Hunter on the team. This was the first week where I really felt like those new characters were just fleshed into this in a way that it felt like, well, I'm going to finish this thought a different way. I think we even said this last week, that one of the issues that's been dominant this season, and I've enjoyed this season so far, but something that's been kind of under the surface is they had us caring for these characters last season. At the end of the season, they really brought you in where you're like, oh no, he's Hydra and her heart's broken. And, these two are at odds. And they really did that to us. And then this season, it's like all that kind of went away. Like May is totally in with Coulson. And yeah, Ward's the bad guy. And I don't think Sky's going back to him. And like they just kind of said, all that stuff happened, but we're moving completely forward. Plus, here's a bunch of new characters you got to try to figure out how they fit in your love. I don't know what word to use there, but seriously, like how you're going to ship them with the rest of them. Well, this week, I think they kind of said, yeah, it doesn't really matter. We're going to just flesh out these characters and let them be what they are. And it made me more interested in Hunter. Mac fully solidified, like he's part of the team. When he did that thing about Lola, all of a sudden, like, I think I know this character. We hardly know anything about him. What's he had? 10 lines total this season?
Right.
I'm completely in on this character. And Triplet, we've barely seen, but what we've had has been so choice. Like, he's had the best lines of the episode in a couple episodes. It's like, you know what? These new characters are fantastic. They are really filling this out.
He's part of the background, which, if you remember the old Sherlock Holmes, that was a great technique because he had people in the background that made it added to the believability.
Yeah, and you kind of knew their story, but they weren't the primary players.
Right.
And even though he is kind of a primary player right now, like we'll talk about Max specifically, he is, but he isn't. He's not. He hasn't done that much, but he just had. You feel like he's part of the story now.
Well, it's funny. As new as Mac is, I feel like he's more part of the story right now than Triplet.
Oh, I do too. But I think that's on purpose. I think that Triplet is replacing Ward as that type of character, even though he's different than Ward. He is the specialist on the team. I don't know what Mac's role specifically is, other than he's loyal to Shield and he's on the bus.
Right. Well, I think what Mac does is he's part tech, part agent, whereas Fitz, I really thought was always all tech and very, very little, like enough agent to pass the academy.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you know
Uh,
what? Maybe you got it right there. Maybe this is actually what's going on. Because if you think about what they were doing with Fitz last season, remember they were trying to butch him up, had him out in the field doing stuff. You do have to have him be able to go out in the field and do stuff without it seeming weird that he's out there. But maybe Mac is the character. Maybe they looked at this at the lineup of characters they had and said, okay, where are the gaps? Mac fills that gap of he can work with Fitz, he can work in that lab. He's not a genius scientist like Fitz is, but he's definitely a lab guy
right.
who is built like Luke Cage and can go out there and be an agent.
Right. He's more than competent. He can do the things out in the field and Fitz when he gets his brain back together. And I think he will.
I think he will too.
That he'll be on the radio and he'll be telling Mac, okay, that nuclear bombastic converter with the third node on the right. He'll be the one guy that can go in and say, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Maybe he couldn't design it, but yes, he could be the one.
Yeah,
he could be Fitz's extension, because it's just they've kind of written themselves in a corner with Fitz as an agent, because if you sent Fitz out into the field, there's less believability. You keep thinking, okay,
oh
Ward
yeah, they
is
can't send him out there now. Good
not
gravy.
well, but they could barely send him out back then. I mean, he did have some great moments, but it was only because Ward had his back the entire time.
True.
Even when he got into that bar, they were about to kick his rear end from one end up to the other until he figured out how to fix their power grid.
Right.
However,
So it was
Mac,
brains that did it for him, but he's not the physical type. Whereas Mac, if he was in that bar, they're not messing with Mac.
right. And that worked in the Bond series. You had Q and M, and they stayed put.
Right.
You had the boss, like Coulson. You had
well, and this is what we talked about last week. They got Coulson out of the office finally,
and I think it worked this time.
I think it worked great.
I thought, well, he kind of got out in the last episode.
Yeah, but remember it was kind of forced when he got out, and she's like, "Why are you in the field?" And he's like, "Well, I just had to get out." This time, once again, so the writer of this episode has done a really good job. Now, here's the other thing. Well, no, of course it was written in this order. This writer is assuming the best of the audience and assuming that we already get it. Last time they were kind of spoon feeding, like, maybe you shouldn't be out in the field, and they tried to explain it a little bit, and that could have gone on for a couple of episodes. But now, because of this episode, he's out in the field. Nobody questioned it. He was active. It all made sense. And you could see how the current director of S.H.I.E.L.D. could be out in the field doing stuff with his team, like always, and still be able to be the director without being stuck in that, room. To me, it made a lot of sense.
It did.
So I think they did a great job there. I think that once again, I'm giving this writer a lot of credit. I think that May has been a character that has been hinted at, but very rarely did we get that May moment that we all knew was there. Like, we've seen it a few times. We've been like, oh, this one, they went, okay, this is the May episode. We got a lot of character. We got interesting stuff. We saw her develop. We had the absolutely incredible fight. I mean,
oh yeah.
When you start talking about, like, well, what can she do? Because remember we said that last year. We're like, they call her all these things, and she does a couple of amazing things, but we never really see her open up and do anything. That fight, oh please, when she bashed the other May's head into the table.
Oh, that was awesome.
Oh
and
my
gosh. And you thought, oh, this is over. That girl, Agent 33, she's down for the count. And
she wasn't.
You weren't, because you breathed a big sigh of relief, and all of a sudden, bam, she's back up.
I love also when May was tied up, and she's all tied up, and you can tell she's gonna get out of this. Like when he says, "What's your current location?" About 5 feet from kicking your ass. That was hilarious. But I love how when she got out, because you knew she's going to, right? any other show, they get out, they break through, or they jump up. No, she breaks out, picks up the chair, smashes it on the table, and then moves on. And I'm like, yep, that is awesome. It was actually Martha, my wife, for those of you that don't know who I'm talking about, was watching, and she said, "Is she bionic?" Because she like was so strong, and I'm like, I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think she's just this super highly trained agent who's just really good and aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there was anything that stood out
Like
as
bionic, other than when
bionic.
she broke the chair, it was awesome. But I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
I think anyone highly trained like that could do that. Think about it. If you're trained in Taekwondo or karate or something, you can do that.
oh yeah, and I think that was right out of like a black belt test.
Yeah. Yeah.
The general black belt test where you're chained to a chair and have to break it to get out.
My black belt test is just to see whether it's the right size that goes around my waist. That's really the test.
My
Guess
army
what?
belt, we
Black
had
one,
the
brown one, they all fit.
that's right. So, and that's another element that it's so worked. Whoever wrote this, I really feel was doing the things that we've wanted to see for so long. Like the interaction between May and Coulson was the most genuine.
It,
So many of these the
it was
interactions,
great. It was
yeah, so
great
many of the
interaction.
interactions to me have been almost downright insubordinate. Like
Right.
this is May is a woman that lives by orders. If Fury told her to chop off her big toe, she would have followed orders. Yet, even after Coulson was made director, she really almost felt like she was still calling the shots. And anytime that she was ready to pull Coulson from this gig, that she was going to, and it just felt like somebody just too big for their britches.
Right.
Where this episode, it wasn't about that at all. It was about, look, I'm in charge. I make the plans. Here's what's going on. If something happens to me, and this is Coulson talking to May, is you've got to take me out. And she says, no, I have an exit strategy. You're going to, the equivalent of Waterloo for Napoleon. He's going to tuck him away and thinks, no, you don't understand. I don't want to become Garrett. He laid it out. You've got to do this for me. And May sits there almost bringing a tear to her eye. And that's the kind of May that is covering Coulson's back, not the one that's saying, when I feel like it's too much, then, I'm going to pull you off.
Sure.
And man, everything worked so well this time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Jack, as long as we're singing these praises, I just looked up on IMDb. The writer of this episode was Drew Z. Greenberg. Okay.
Ah,
And this is what's interesting when you go in there, he's a producer, he's a writer. Okay. First of all, this is the only Agents of Shield he's written so far. So he's written one episode.
did he write Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Let me just tell you why it seems like Firefly. He wrote the episode Safe from Firefly. He
Ah,
wrote 6 episodes of Buffy.
yes.
Let's see. So that makes a lot of sense. He wrote some of the Smallville episodes. He wrote Warehouse 13. He wrote, now this is where, okay, the Buffy and, because I don't know those other ones as well, but Buffy and Arrow, or Buffy and Firefly. Okay, that makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
He is also a writer on Arrow and a producer on Arrow. Do you watch Arrow?
I I haven't, but I do remember you talking about it. And
Arrow gets it right. And a lot of people, that was why people were criticizing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last year. One of the reasons is Arrow was so good. And it was in its second season. And they're like, the first season was awesome. Second season's even better. Why can't Marvel do this? You and I both felt that Marvel was doing it. They just had to get their sea legs, which I think they've proven. But one of the reasons is a guy like this that writes Arrow, they got him a way to do this. And
right.
this had a different feel. And here's the crazy thing. As much as it feels like, oh, he also wrote a couple episodes of Dexter. You can't go wrong there, right? But if you look at Firefly and Buffy, and we were saying, here's the parallels, that makes sense. Arrow is not written the way this was written, or it doesn't have the same feel, but the way, like the skill of the writing is the same. And now that I know that, I look at it and go, oh, that's one of the reasons this clicks so well is it was written by somebody that writes on Arrow, which is written that way.
Right. No, I totally agree. And it's funny if you look at some of the late I was on IMDb when we were kind of warming up for the show, and there were a lot of similarities with a lot of the other writers having been on those shows,
Yeah.
but not Arrow. So, maybe this guy has, between Firefly and Arrow and melding those two and taking some of those techniques into this,
Yeah.
man, it was
It was
this
great.
it was good.
And it was
I,
not
I
what I expected. I'm telling you, that preview, I was nervous. I was like, oh, this dance scene, this is going to be crapola. And opposite. And,
okay.
we watched it twice. And the second viewing, it was actually better. I got more little things. And I was like, oh, look at that. Oh, it made more. It was just really, really great.
Oh, speaking of not what you expected, what about when Colson and May are dancing and the little interplay? I would give. Of course, she was walking in, said I would give $500 for a pair of flats, and
Right. That
and the
was
jokes
perfect.
left and right.
Yeah.
And they're doing the dips and they're identifying as they're doing these wild head turns, they're identifying, the six guards, one with a club, and another one with one weapon, blah, blah, blah. And boom, Talbot.
Right. Okay. Talbot, first of all, let's go back to what we were saying about these new characters that are important. I did not think at the beginning of the season that he was going to be throughout. Okay. I like the character. We've talked about how this is a good character to have on here. The way he was used in this episode, I'm just keep letting him be part of this universe. I thought that was fantastic use of Talbot.
Oh yeah, that's like the classic FBI cop kind of
Yeah.
clash. That
Yeah.
old, almost cliquish that you come to expect with the old timey comics. That was very Marvel, very Talbot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. What
And
I love at the end when he's like, okay, so me, what was it? Something like me laughing at a joke. That didn't tip you off that it
I
wasn't me or
know.
whatever. I was like, oh, of course. Yeah.
And I was how now were you almost screaming at this TV like I was? Like, you've got to be kidding me. Talbot is not Talbot.
Yeah, I knew that too.
As
And
soon as he came up and didn't completely flip out,
I
that was clue
know.
number one.
And when and when you watch it the second time, it's so obvious.
When
But
you watch it the first time is
it
obvious.
was obvious, but the second time I was like, how did I not catch this? But I'll tell you what, the I thought they played it just really, really well. That whole thing of him or of Hydra and all that, when this is where Twitter blew up. I was live tweeting during the show. If you don't join us for live tweeting during Agents of Shield, Jack, you're usually recording, so you can't get on. But usually, Alil and I go on and live tweet. I live tweet from @NuffSaidPod, and Alil is doing it from League of LOGEEKZ, League of Geek, League of
A Giga Leaks.
yeah, Giga Leaks. But during the live tweeting, there'll be certain things that'll like blow up, and you can tell. May with the laugh, everyone was cracking up at that. Talbot, when he was on the phone, and then you saw the Shield logo, people were snookered by that. I mean, across Twitter, it was like, "Oh no, he's Hydra! I can't believe it!" And I knew, I was like, that to me was like the definitive. Nope, there is no way he's Hydra. There is
Well,
just there is no way it works if he's Hydra, and he wasn't.
well, because usually I make little notes that I can kind of go back to, and I forget what almost the first thing out of Colson's mouth was, how things basically, it's oversimplification. And Talbot's like, oh yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, right.
Right
Yeah, it's like,
there.
nope,
That's
there's no
not
way that's
Talbot.
him. Yeah.
No, that's not Talbot at all.
Well,
Yeah,
once again, I got to hand it to the acting in this episode because it was on the second viewing where it was so obvious. Yes, it was obvious right there, but when you watch it the second time, the way he plays it, just like the way May played when she wasn't May. Yes, some of it is obvious where she's like, "Yes, I am doing that," or "Yes, I will join you for coffee." But it's the other stuff. It's the more subtle things, the way they're looking around the room where I'm like, that is clearly not May. That is clearly not Talbot. But
Right.
I gotta hand it to that mustache. Talbot's mustache is rocking the show.
Hashtag mustache.
I saw somebody online on Twitter has a hashtag Talbot's mustache, and I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm following you, and I'm telling everybody to go to @Talbot's mustache because that rocks.
Oh,
It's
that is
like
awesome.
we have a Twitter account that we haven't used yet, but it's Daryl's Poncho from Walking Dead.
Right.
We figure we're gonna just flood it with a bunch of jokes at some point, but right now it's just kind of sitting out there because we're like, yep, Daryl's Poncho needs its own Twitter account.
And fast forward towards the end a little bit when May and Coulson are sitting together and she asks, how did you know? And well, it was a couple things here and there, but it was the coffee.
The coffee,
And
which to
she
me,
says,
I'm a
"Did you
big
punch
coffee
me?"
guy, so that hurts.
Right. And so did you punch me in the face?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. Well, you know what? There's another thing, and this was really quick, very subtle. But when they mentioned that they took ballroom as an elective at the academy, and I
Right.
was like, that all of a sudden, I'm like, it contextualized so much. Like you think of them working together as young agents and everything, but they were in the academy together, just like Fitz and Simmons were. So the
Right.
bonds happened back then. They've known each other since then, and they even took a dance elective together. And when they were dancing, it wasn't about them having a romantic dance. It was about like, hey, we did ballroom together. Let's do this. This was part of our spy training. I was like, that was awesome. Although
Right.
I gotta say, for people that ship, I don't know if you know what that is, Jack. You were on a ship, but do you know what shipping is?
I'm going to say no.
It's relationshipping. It's a big thing with all the shows. So, like during X Files, people would ship Mulder and Scully, and they'd write fan fiction about Mulder and Scully being in love and their dates and all that. Well, what is it? Philinda, I think, is what they call the couple of Phil Coulson and Melinda May. And people are
Belinda.
big time shipping Philinda to the point that we're sitting on the couch now. Martha, my wife, once again, not a big fan of the show. She's watches it with us, but she's like, it's not really her kind of show. Although this week, all about Philinda. She's like, oh, I'm majorly shipping them right now. And she said actually that after this episode, she's like, May might be in my top favorite characters of all time.
Well, and I think before it felt they did the backstory and you could feel the relationship between them. And I think in our minds, we filled in a lot of the blanks.
Yeah.
And I think this episode actually made that closer. It made that relationship more real instead of always their relationship always seems slightly strained to me for all of what Coulson did for May. And as close as May felt to Coulson, I always felt an awkwardness that I didn't feel this episode. This is the first and only episode that I really believed in Philinda.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you 100%. There were clues, there were things, but this one, it's like, once again, I can't say enough good about this Drew Greenberg. In fact, Drew, I would love for you to be a guest on our show because we're going to just sing the praises. You got this right. You really got this right. And the Whedons and the whole crew up there really needs to pay attention to how accurate this was to what we're looking for. The only thing, you know what? I was about to say the only thing missing, but it wasn't missing. It didn't need it. But if I had to say the only thing missing was an actual like superhero.
And a Lil.
Because a Lil. But
little shout out there.
But that's the thing about this show, like we've talked about before, like people are waiting for superheroes. And I think the first 3 episodes of this season, they've given us those supervillains, and it's like, yeah, this is heading in the right direction. This one didn't have that, other than it had some cool tech stuff. But boy, if you combine this and then have, a superhero in the mix, holy cow. Holy cow.
Oh,
now you're talking Arrow and the Flash, because the Flash is awesome. If you haven't watched the Flash yet, it's awesome. And this, if it had a superhero in the mix a little bit more, would absolutely be as good as the Flash.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So let's go back to what you said about supervillain. What about Dr. Whitehall and Flowers?
Oh my gosh! Oh, did you love that? What was that thing
Flowers
that he put on her hand?
Flowers has been in control of her domain, we should say.
Yeah.
The entire series.
This guy rocked her.
Oh my God. It's like everything, like if I had to deal with Flowers, I'd be okay, whatever you want, here's my wallet, I'm not even going to fight, just take anything you
Yeah.
want and I'll do anything you want because you're going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
He
Not
comes in
not this
there,
guy.
rocks her world, puts that little high-tech button, presses a button, it completely attacks her nervous system. She's done.
Yeah, and he says, "I'm not like other people you deal with. You can't talk me
Man,
into things. I'm
right.
different." And it's like, no kidding. This guy, I'm dying to get more of this guy's story. They better not just let it be, oh, he's the big bad guy. They gave us the thing about him being a Nazi at the beginning. I'm ready to get some backstory. I don't need
Right.
it yet. I don't need it today. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he was a grown Nazi in the 40s,
I
and
know.
this is 2014. So this guy's been around, and he's not going to take any crap. And what about when he just says, I can find you anytime I want? You think this is a fluke? I'll be back.
Yeah.
48 hours. You've got
You got
48
48 hours.
hours. You can go anywhere you want. I will find you.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'm
boy,
really interested to see what happens with this because I'm telling you, this guy, how are they going to get around this guy? They are going to need Thor to come in and hit him with a hammer. Yeah, this guy needs a
you know,
conk on the head because otherwise, how do you deal with this?
for real. If I had to hashtag this episode, it would be hashtag believability.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
It just,
anything that wasn't believable, that like a scene like this, you go, yeah, okay, that thing that was on her hand, that's not a believable thing. But it made everybody accountable in this
the
one, you know?
what on Flower's hand? Oh,
Yeah,
that to me, that's totally believable technology.
really.
Oh, yes.
That was
Oh,
crazy.
oh my God. Oh, I mean, think of the implications. You have something that sits on the skin, which skin conducts if all sorts of things. If you rub garlic on the bottom of your feet,
Oh,
eventually
you can
in a
smell that?
few
I'm sorry.
minutes, huh?
I said you can smell that? I'm sorry.
I can smell it through the phone. But if you rub it on your feet, you can actually taste the garlic in your mouth in a few, like 5 to 10 minutes. You'll actually be able to taste it. So you can transmit, nicotine patches, drugs, all sorts of things. That to me is totally believable. That kind of super tech. That's to me that's Star Trek stuff that could actually come true,
Yeah.
like the flip phones
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
communicators in Star Trek became flip phones. That is totally doable tech.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
You
I
can.
meant was it something current, but believable? Yeah, definitely believable.
Oh yeah. No, no,
Well,
that
even
was
that weird
definitely
mask thing, that reminded me of obviously Black Widow used it in Cap 2, but it's very similar to what they used in Mission Impossible, the
right.
masks. And that actually, I've read articles that there is, I mean, not as advanced as what we saw, but that is not that far in the future as technology that's pretty much that good. Although I do have to say, apparently when you put that on, it changes your voice to sound exactly like the person too, which is a little weird.
Right. Well, you figure if they could do that with the structure and the hologram,
That would
that
have some kind of voice modulation in it.
yeah,
They're pretty
it's but
sweet. I'll take it.
yeah, yeah. I will that actually be a real future technology? Who knows? But that thing that they got on Flowers, oh, I see that happening in the next. I think that would be in the next 10 years.
Yeah. So, okay, we got to wrap up in a second here. You know what? Since you said that I can absorb things through my feet, I'm going to go stand in a bucket of coffee. Um, but
I
I do want
actually
to
am right
quickly,
now.
I quickly want to run through a couple of things. Uh, Another big thing we had here was the bus was in danger. And it reminded me of Star Trek, how one of the things Roddenberry said was every episode has to have the ship in danger. And when you know that, it starts to make it a little bit boring when you watch Star Trek and you're like, oh, every movie, they've got to have the ship in danger. Every show, the ship is in danger. Not that I think Star Trek's boring. I'm a big Trekkie. But this reminded me of that. I'm like, oh, the bus has to be in danger. And I thought, they really haven't done that much on here.
Right.
So I think, and it wasn't boring. I thought it was really good, but it did remind me of that philosophy of the bus is one of the characters and you've got to put it in danger in order to keep the interest level. But I was like, no, they just used it because the rest of this season, they haven't done much with the bus and they haven't really put it in danger.
And it took Fitz past the hump. I think.
I do too. Well, I also
I
like that
think.
they explain the lab.
Oh yeah.
That was to me was really good too because I kept thinking, did they redesign the bus? No, they moved the lab, and the old lab is now like a storage thing. It's like it makes more sense to have it there. And she even said that like you've got a better lab, and it makes more sense. It's like, yep, it does.
It does.
Now,
But it did add for the nostalgia. It did add, and even tied into the end when they're all hanging together and he just blurts out, "Yeah, I had this girl who I
oh,
told how I felt and she left."
yep, that would be a shipping Fitz and Simmons right there.
Yeah.
That was like that's the other thing. Twitter blows up with poor Fitz. I'm telling you, I'm watching it. I'm saying the same thing the whole time. I'm like, dude, and she didn't leave you. I think she's working for Hydra too because she's trying to help you. And he was out of it. He didn't know. And they're not talking about it because they got to keep her cover. And it's like, oh, it's just such a painful deal.
So are they calling it Fimmins or Sits?
They call Fitzsimmons, I believe.
I like Sits.
Sits. Yeah.
Way to wrap it up.
Yeah. You know what? I'm shipping you and Alil. You're Jalil now.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yuck.
I'm relationshipping you with you. Rob.
Rob, you. You know what? I just threw up a little bit. You made me step out of my coffee for a second.
Well, but there's a believability factor.
Right, true. So, all right. I think we're done with this one. I think that was enough. So
that was stellar.
I want to address a couple of things on the way out here. First of all, you can find all of our past episodes and our blogs at our website, which is www.southgatemediagroup.com. And if you go there, it's got a list of all of our shows. Just click on Enough Said, and it'll take you right to it all. Another thing is, one of the blogs we have on there is Super Connectivity, which Charlie writes, and it's really fantastic. Well, Charlie has now turned that into a podcast, and we talked about it last week a little bit. We did the first episode. It went up on Monday of this week, and wow, lots of people listening to it. If you haven't heard it yet, if you're a Marvel fan, it's not as goofy as Jack and I and Alil. Alil seems to know more than you and I, but Charlie really knows his stuff. So it's really a good listen. And then we've also added Phil Parrish, who does our Before the Bat podcast, which is about Gotham. If you're a Gotham fan, definitely check out Before the Bat. He also does Flash Arrow Power Hour. And he writes a couple of blogs. Well, he is a Marvel fan also. I was talking all DC. He does a little thing where he runs down the Marvel books for the week. And it's just like a little, 5-minute segment. He just kind of says, here's what the books are. Here's what the plot is. You know what? It's a lot of fun to listen to. I don't have a chance to read that many, and it gave me an update. So that's going to be a regular feature also. So if you subscribe to Nuff Said, go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, wherever you subscribe to us, just subscribe, and you'll get those in your feed throughout the week, which is really cool. Please rate us and review us. That really helps, and it encourages us, and it encourages people like Phil to do these little extra things for us, which we really appreciate. What else, Jack? Oh, hey, yeah, go ahead.
Oop, up, eep, oop. Wada wada bing bang.
Yeah.
I'd like to quickly plug the Blacklist podcast. We've kind of gotten going.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, you guys are doing great.
And we've got on our Twitter, James Spader has been posting on our account. So plug in it at Twitter at the Blacklist Pod. And another thing is
and you can find that podcast. Hold on, you can find that podcast once again at our website, and you can find what Jack's about to talk about at our website, which is another interesting thing.
Yes, is the Trumpet Talk, which I've just started, and issue 2 should be in this weekend, and it is talking about trumpets and professional gigs, stories from my 21 years on the road with the Army Band. And so that's going. And so there's a couple of new things out there. My Twitter is at J1 Grosky, so you can follow me there.
And the show Twitter is Nuff Said Pod. And you can also follow me. And I tweet out all of our shows. And we've got like 40 different titles. So I tweet out whenever new episodes hit at R Southgate. And the Martha that I keep mentioning tweets from our company one, which is at SMG Pods. All right. I think we have done enough business. What do you think? Oh, you know,
Oh,
let's give a little shout out to. He's at the League of Geeks. That's GEEKZ for geeks. They have a website. They have a podcast. It's not on our network, but it's excellent. It's a lot of fun to listen to, and their website's really good. So definitely check them out. And their Twitter is at LOGEEKZ. And we live tweet stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. If you don't live tweet, get in there with us. Oh, that brings up one more thing. As of today, we put up our forum on our website. So by the time you hear this, there'll be a link on our website that says check out our free forum, and you can go there, and it's brand new. So discussions are just barely starting. You may go in there and find none yet. That's okay. We're going to have different threads. We're going to start with specific threads for each show. So you want to get in there and talk about Enough Said, you want to talk about super connectivity, you can go in there and talk it up. All right?
Great. And I think I'll start a forum all about Halle Berry and Catwoman.
You mean you're going to move it over to this one?
No, it doesn't exist yet, but I figure it'll get like 3 or 4 people from the country.
Oh, please.
All in one place.
Please. And they're all last name Wengroski.
Only because I made my family subscribe.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for subscribing. That brings us up to 7.
Thanks, Nana.
Thanks, Nana. That's it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. You know what? As long as we're doing last thing, check it out. We've got tweaked headphones on our website. I had a problem with mine. I actually had an issue, and I sent in. They have a lifetime warranty when you buy them through our website. You just click on the thing, and it takes you to their website. You put in the coupon code Southgate. You get a third off. You get free shipping, and it's got a lifetime warranty. Guess what? I've had to use my warranty twice, and no questions asked. They sent me brand new headphones, and the sound on them is just great. So if you're looking for headphones, you're listening to a show like this, you want some good headphones, Tweaked Audio, go through our website, use the coupon code Southgate. That'll hook you up. Jack, you use them too, right?
I do. I have a pair just because they are so cheap and they are so handy and they get such a great sound. I carry a pair. I've got much more expensive ones, and I don't like to take them around, and these are perfect for that.
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah. Yep. Okay, we're done plugging. Business is over. Drew Greenberg, if you're out there, we loved your episode. So excellent. And Kevin Tankaron, I know I'm saying that name wrong, but Kevin is related to Marissa, I'm sure, who is one of the creators of the show, was the director of this episode.
And this Southgate fake out was brought to you.
Yeah. So, but it looks like he only directed one episode, so we're giving a lot of credit to Drew, but I'm having a feeling Kevin got it right too. So excellent job all the way around. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, enough said.
Enough said.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.